Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to look at the letter D. Now, this is quite an easy letter if we look at received pronunciation, and we're going to use a word to practice with, which is ladder. You can hear the R at the end of that word is silent. The ladder is the thing that you climb in the kitchen if you can't reach some of the shelves, or perhaps in the garden if you want to clean the windows. You have to go up the ladder. Now, there's other words like delicious, dine, dawn, dangerous. The letter D, as you can hear there, is made by putting the tongue up to the top parts where your front teeth meet your gums. Okay, so just to the top of your front teeth, de. Very easy. Let's get back to our word ladder. Now, it's fine in received pronunciation, but once you go outside of London, that letter D becomes a little bit troubling. And to use an English idiom, it becomes a bit of a difficult nut to crack. All right, so for example, in Northern Ireland, the D sounds more like a T. Ladder. Where's a ladder? You can hear there that sounds more like letter. Ladder. Ladder. It's the same in Scotland. The letter D takes a bit of a harder form. Ladder. Ladder. It doesn't quite reach the T that we had in Northern Irish, but it's getting there. At the end of the word, especially around Manchester and Liverpool, also the D becomes quite pronounced. Listen to this. I'm in London and I can say, "Oh, I'm so glad to meet you." Glad. The D almost doesn't exist. Glad to meet you. It stops before there's any ending. Glad. But yet in the north, that word can change simply to glad. Oh, glad to meet you. Especially in a place like Wales. Glad to meet you. So you can hear there that the letter D is, like most letters in received pronunciation, very soft and genteel. Yet around other parts of the UK, it's very marked. You know, in our history, people who spoke with loud letters, they were considered to be uneducated. They were kind of shunned. Oh, that's the person that doesn't speak properly. It was inadvertently a form of racism, and that does still exist today. If you're in the wrong place, and I'm thinking particularly here around maybe government officials or aristocrats, you get a feeling that you're not really respected once you open your mouth. Now, as I've told you before, as a young man, my parents moved from Scotland to England when I was, I don't know how old I was, but I was very young. And at that point, I had a very hard Scottish accent. And I had no choice except to change it because people just laughed at me or didn't understand what I was saying. And so very quickly I had to adopt a London English accent in order to survive. And then, of course, after I left school to find work, it was very, very important for me to be speaking without any trace of a Scottish accent. So that's how I ended up with the accent I have today. Gladly, I was young enough to do that without much difficulty, but these days it's much more difficult, especially if you're learning English as a second language. So, the letter D. Let's just go through some of the words, and I would advise you to stay with received pronunciation unless you're planning to maybe go to another country, or maybe you are planning to immigrate to Glasgow, or to Ireland, in which case you really should try to investigate their local regional accents. You don't want to go to New York with received pronunciation to be saying things like, oh, how lovely. I think you would probably be very welcome, of course, but you'll find that they'll be just looking at you strangely, thinking, why are you talking like that? Because, of course, they're very relaxed in their way. So wherever you're planning to immigrate to, as I always say, it's very important to have some base, some place in the English world you can call yours. And from that place, you study accent, you study sounds, and you copy, you assimilate. This is the most natural way of learning. And if for some reason you can't do that, stay with received pronunciation or the London accent. It's probably the safest. And that is the letter D. Ladder. Develop. So your tongue just goes up to where your front teeth meet your gums. Okay. Now, if you're not really interested in speaking, today is National Bookshop Day. So if you're the kind of person that likes to have a rummage around a bookshop, today is the day for you. Here in the UK, it's National Bookshop Day. We don't really celebrate stuff like this, which is really sad because we invented the day. On this day, in the 1300s, the first ever bookshop opened in the UK. So that's a really good reason to celebrate. You would think our local bookshops would have discounts or sales, but I think most of them don't even know. Very sad, very sad. Anyway, here's some interesting facts about bookshops. The largest one is the Barnes Noble bookstore in New York in the USA. Other things I can tell you, the most expensive book ever bought is a book by Leonardo da Vinci, which is called Codex Leicester. And that was bought by Bill Gates for 30 million. Wow. Of course, probably for him it's an investment. I don't think he's settling down with a cup of cocoa after a hard day at the computer with it, is he? It's probably kept in a bank vault, I would guess. Since the earliest printed book covers, they were thought of as works of art. So since the earliest time, printed book covers were considered to be special, and there was no room for the author's name, so that's kind of a new thing. And the first book ever written on a typewriter was Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Other things I can tell you is that people in Iceland read the most. That's a bit strange, isn't it? Maybe it's because of the weather. They're probably freezing up there, so they'll get through a lot of books if they're very cold, won't they? Some people say that it's just the way that they're taught, Oh, interesting, isn't it? Well, there we are. That's some interesting facts about bookshops. Have you got a favorite book? Maybe one that you keep going back to again and again? It's hard to think about one, isn't it? Especially when you've got a Kindle full of them and printed books stored away. The problem is I have so many that I want to read them, but it's just about choice, When you have so many of something, it's not very inspiring. Maybe Lord of the Flies. That was a good one. Lord of the Flies was by William Golding. about a group of kids who crash on an island. They were flying somewhere. They crash on an island and they end up being stuck there without any adult supervision. And it's about how they become rather primitive. They change from being very well-educated schoolboys into a group of kids who hate each other, and they start to become very primitive, and they divide into two camps, and then they go to war with each other and kill each other. Yeah, that one's quite interesting. Lord of the Flies. And yeah, the conch, that's like a big shell, becomes the symbol of power. It's about how if you're not careful, society can easily go back to primitive ways. A very good book, yeah. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Another one which I like a lot is Watership Down. That's all about a group of rabbits which divide into two groups and start killing each other. No, that's a nice one as well. I can't remember who wrote that one, Watership Down. It's a very good book if you're looking for something nice to read. What other books do we love? Well, some of you might know Animal Farm by George Orwell. That's where animals on a farm divide into two groups, the pigs and the other animals, leading to power struggles and betrayal. That's quite a good one. Let me think of some others. Oh yeah, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. That explores rivalry between two groups of teenagers in a really gritty coming-of-age story. Yeah, that's a nice one if you're looking for a nice book to read. Let's see. Let me just think what other books I love. Oh, there's loads. Oh, The Hunger Games. That's a good one by Suzanne Collins, where a city and its districts have two opposing groups in a dystopian society where children are forced to fight to the death for entertainment. Yeah, I'm kind of sensing a pattern here that all the books I like are about people who break into two groups and then create a war. Interesting, isn't it? Well, here's some books beginning with the letter D. I know you'll appreciate these, so listen to the pronunciation. Dune. Some people might say Dune. Yeah, it depends on who you're talking to about that letter U. If you compare Whitney Houston with Whitney Houston. So yeah, Dune or Dune by Frank Herbert. That's that science fiction epic. I know you all know it. Many of you have told me you've read that. Dracula. Oh, that's a nice one with the letter D, isn't it? Yeah. That's the classic gothic horror novel with the vampire. Oh, I watched a version of that the other day. Oh, it was absolutely brutal. Brutal. The best Dracula, as far as I'm concerned, is the one with Frank. Is it Frank Langella? Frank Langella, the American Italian actor. Da Vinci Code. That's a nice one with the letter D, isn't it? Everyone knows about the Da Vinci Code. Diary of Anne Frank. Oh, yeah, that's quite a well-known one, isn't it? The historical diary of a girl during World War II. Yeah, very sad. Divergent by Veronica Roth. I don't know if you know that one, Divergent. It's the first book in the dystopian young adult series set in a divided society based on personality traits. Oh, it sounds good, doesn't it? I love books where they split into two groups and kill each other. Oh yeah, there's that Spanish novel by Miguel de Cervantes. I always get the word wrong here. So it's Don, is it Coyote? It sounds more like coyote, doesn't it? The animal in the English world. I always say it wrong. Something like Quixote or Coyote, I don't know, but that's a good one too. Oh, The Dark Tower. That's a nice one by Stephen King. He did a series of Dark Tower novels, didn't he? About the gunslinger Roland. Yes, yes. Um, yeah, there's loads. The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. It's a non-fiction book that intertwines the history of the 1893 Chicago World Fair with the story of a serial killer operating in the same city. Oh, that could be interesting, but it's not fiction, so it might be harder to read. So there we are, lots of books with the letter D. I think most of them are on my shelf somewhere, uh, or on my Kindle. It's just finding them. I really should try to create a database or something so I know where all my books are. And then, of course, they're the ones we lent to other people and never got back. I hate that. But, well, doesn't matter. These days, it's very easy to get a second copy. You just go onto eBay, unless, of course, you're a book collector, in which case you might find it a bit harder to replace some of your books. And there we are. That's it. All right, then. So, lovely to be with you all again. I hope you've enjoyed this about the letter D. And I wish you all a wonderful day. See you. Bye.